Pacific Island leaders say the impacts from climate change are most evident in the region's low-lying countries, including Tuvalu.
The situation is dire. There is no other word to describe how serious the situation is.
Rising sea levels and increased weather extremes are inundating precious tracts of land and impacting fresh water supplies and food security.
And it's threatening and will continue to threaten the livelihoods and survival of our peoples. Unless, of course, the world comes together to do real, concrete actions as urgently as possible.
That's why Pacific Island nations are bidding to co-host the UN's Climate Summit in 2026 with Australia, the biggest country in the region. Australia's government has lobbied to secure support from across the Pacific and from the international community.
Symbolically, that's important because it signals to the world that Australia wants to work with Pacific Island nations together to address their key security threat.
Australia has committed billions of dollars in climate assistance across the Pacific and significantly increased investment in renewable energy. Despite that, Australia remains heavily reliant on fossil fuels and continues to approve new coal and gas projects. Pacific Island nations account for less than half of 1% of total global emissions. Australia, on the other hand, ranks third in the world when it comes to export emissions because of the amount of coal and gas it sends overseas.
You know, this has been something of a thorn in the side for the relationship between Australia and Pacific nations for quite some time now, because where Pacific nations are pressing for ambitious and timely action to cut emissions, Australia's actually sought to avoid onerous commitments to be cutting its emissions.
Earlier this month, Australia signed a pact with Tuvalu that includes allowing its residents facing displacement from climate change the ability to resettle in Australia.
These are impractical and I think a silly proposal.
Former Tuvalu Prime Minister Anile Sopoaga says the deal does nothing to address the underlying threats facing his country, which is why he and a group of Pacific Island elders believe Australia does not deserve to host the climate summit.
Unless they show to the world, to the small island countries of the Pacific, that they are doing tangible actions to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions.
Sopoaga says Australia is an important and appreciated neighbor to the Pacific, but the region can no longer ignore the issues that contribute to a changing climate and are impacting people's livelihoods. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Sydney.